All right. We're live now. KK Teach right here. Um, so welcome in. It's May the 4th, 2020. And today we are going to look at the United Nations 2030 Agenda Decoded. We're here at the Natural News website over here. And I'll leave the links below. And you can go ahead and read it for yourself. But I'm going to go over these today as time allows. And here the United Nations 2030 Agenda, it is a blueprint for the global enslavement of humanity under the boot of corporate masters. This was written by Mike Adams, the owner of this website, Natural News. So I encourage you to go look it up, and he has a lot of wonderful articles on what is really going on. This week, Michael Snyder published an important article entitled The 2030 Agenda. This month, the UN launches the blueprint for a new world order with the help of the Pope. Alright, the article references this UN 2030 Agenda document that pushes a blueprint for so-called sustainable development around the world. They call it sustainable development. Look at it in quotes. It's a code over here, so they mean something else. It's not exactly the language that we are being led to believe. This is a different language over here. This document describes nothing less than a global government takeover. You hear that? Global government takeover of every nation across the planet. So this is the plan to take over every country. Okay? The goals of this document are nothing more than code words. You heard that? This guy is decoding this thing very succinctly. The goals of this document are nothing more than a code word for a corporate government fascist agenda. So this is a plan for the government and the corporations to actually take over everything. And I think the government is giving out corporations to completely take over the planet. And this will imprison humanity in a devastating cycle of poverty while enriching the world's most powerful globalists, corporations like Monsanto and DuPont. So all these, Monsanto and DuPont and many other corporations will benefit from this agenda over here. Many of them, and you know them. In the interest of helping wake up humanity, because humanity is asleep for sure, I've decided to translate the 17 points of this 2030 agenda so that readers everywhere can understand what this document is really calling for. To perform this translation, you have to understand how globalists disguise their monopolistic agendas in feel-good language. That's how they speak. The Bible says it very, very clearly. The devil comes as an angel of light. Okay? And this is what they use, feel-good language. They make you feel good. But they go and stab your back. Here is the point-by-point translation. Notice carefully that nowhere does this document state that achieving human freedom is one of its goals. You'll never see that over here. Nor does it explain how these goals are to be achieved. As you will see here, every single point in this UN agenda is to be achieved through centralized government control and totalitarian mandates that resemble communism. It's a takeover, complete takeover of everything. Food, all industries, water, air, even the air that we breathe, they're taking it over too. The translation of the UN's 2030 Agenda Blueprint for globalist government controlled by corporate interests. Goal number 1, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Translation: put everyone on government welfare, food stamps, housing subsidies, and handouts that make them obedient slaves to global government. Never allow people upward mobility to help themselves. Instead, teach mass victimization and obedience to a government that provides a monthly allowance, hear that, monthly allowance money for basic essentials like food and medicine. Label it ending poverty. You see their language over here? In their language, this means ending poverty. No, in our language. So when they say end poverty in all its forms everywhere, this is exactly what they mean. Okay, goal number two, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. That is exactly what they are now saying. Translation, invade the entire planet with genetically modified organisms, GMOs, and Monsanto's patented seeds. Remember they give these seeds? While increasing the use of deadly herbicides under the false claim of increased output of food crops. Engineer genetically modified plants to boost specific vitamin chemicals while having no idea of the long-term consequences of genetic pollution or cross-species. Genetic experiments carried out openly in a fragile ecosystem. Oh, you've seen that there's a lot of crop failures all over the world right now. So that's exactly what they mean. They say ending hunger is really bring all the crop failures. You know. Goal number three, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Translation, mandate 100 plus vaccines for all children and adults at gunpoint. You heard that? At gunpoint. Threatening parents with arrest and imprisonment if they refuse to cooperate. Push heavy medication use on children and teens while rolling out screening programs called mass medication prevention programs and claim they improve the health of citizens. So, goal number 4, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Translation, push a false history and a dumbed down education under common core. That's exactly what's going on here. Education standards that produce obedient workers rather than independent thinkers. They are not educating the children to think independently and do their own things. They want to be obedient and just rather wait for others to do it for themselves. Never let people learn real history. The history we're being taught is really their story. His story. Or else they may realize they don't want to repeat it. Because actually history says it repeats itself. So they don't want you and me to learn our history. That's why we need to go back to our old ways and learn our history. Goal number 5, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Translation, criminalize Christianity, marginalize heterosexuality, demonize males, and promote the LGBT agenda everywhere. Real goal is never equality, but rather the marginalization and shaming of anyone who expresses any male characteristics whatsoever. The ultimate goal is to feminize society, creating widespread acceptance of gentle obedience along with the self-weakening ideas of communal property and sharing everything, because only male energy has the strength to rise up against oppression and fight for human rights. See that? The suppression of male energy is key to keeping the population in a state of eternal acquiescence. Unbelievable. Goal number 6, ensure availability and sustainability management of water and sanitation for all. Translation, allow corporations to seize control of the world's water supplies and judge monopoly prices to build new water delivery infrastructure that ensures availability. Goal number 7, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Translation, penalize coal, gas, and oil while pushing doomed to fail green energy subsidies to brain-dead startups, aided by friends of the White House who all go bankrupt in 5 years or less. The green startups make for impressive speeches and media coverage. Because these companies are led by corrupt idiots rather than capable entrepreneurs, they always go broke. And the media hopes you don't remember all the fanfare surrounding their original launch. Goal number 8 promotes sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. Translation: regulate small business out of existence with government-mandated minimum wages that bankrupt entire sectors of the economy. Force employers to meet hiring quotas of LGBT workers while mandating wage tiers and a centralized planned work economy dictated by the government. Destroy free market economics and deny permits and licenses to these companies that don't obey government dictates. Goal number 9. Build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. Translation: put nations into extreme debt. That's exactly what they've been doing over the last 50 years with the World Bank. World Bank is there to enslave the world, spending debt money to hire corrupt American corporations to build large-scale infrastructure projects that trap developed nations in an endless spiral of debt. See the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins to understand the details about this scheme has been repeated countless times over the last decades. This is happening all over the world, by the way. It's not only United States, this is worldwide. Goal number 10. Reduce inequality within and among countries. Translation: punish the rich, the entrepreneurs, and the innovators, confiscating nearly all gains by those who choose to work and excel. Redistribute the confiscated wealth to the masses of non-working human parasites that feed over a productive economy while contributing nothing to it, all while screaming about equality. Goal number 11. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Translation: ban all gun ownership by private citizens, concentrating guns into the hands of obedient government enforcers who roll over an unarmed, enslaved class of impoverished workers. Criminalize living in most rural areas by instituting hunger games, time-protected areas, which the government will claim are owned by the people, even though no people are allowed to live there. Force all humans into densely packed, tightly controlled cities where they are under 24/7 surveillance and subject to easy manipulation by the government. Goal number 12. Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Translation: begin levying punitive taxes on the consumption of fossil fuels and electricity, forcing people to live under conditions of worsening standards of living that increasingly resemble third world conditions. Use social influence campaigns in TV, movies, and social media to shame people who use gasoline, water, or electricity, establishing a social construct of nannies and toddlers who rat out their neighbors in exchange for food credit rewards. Wow. Goal number 13. Right here. Take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Translation: set energy consumption quotas on each human being and start punishing or even criminalizing lifestyle decisions that exceed energy usage limits set by governments. Institute total surveillance of individuals in order to track and calculate their energy consumption, penalize private vehicle ownership, and force the masses into public transit where TSA grants and facial recognition cameras can monitor and record the movement of every person in society, like a scene ripped right out of Minority Report. This is exactly where we are now, with all the phones we have, with all the technology we have, with 5G coming out. This is exactly what is going on. Everything will be surveilled in the name of safety. Goal number 14. Conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas and marine resources for sustainable development. Translation. Ban most ocean fishing, plunging the food supply into an extreme shortage and causing runaway food price inflation that puts even more people into economic desperation. Criminalize the operation of private fishing vessels and place all ocean fishing operations under the control of government central planning. Only allow favored corporations to conduct ocean fishing operations and make decisions based entirely on which corporations give the most campaign contributions to corrupt lawmakers. That's exactly what is going on. Unbelievable. If you've been following actually what's been going on all over the world, especially in the United States, this is what has been going on here. And this is coming. Goal number 15, to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and hold and reverse land degradation, and hold biodiversity laws. Translation. Roll out Agenda 21. Enforce humans off the land and into controlled cities. Criminalize private land ownership, including ranches and agricultural tracts. Tightly control all agriculture. Alright, we're going to continue on translation number 15 over here. Roll out Agenda 21 and force humans off the land and into controlled cities. Criminalize private land ownership, including ranches and agricultural tracts. Tightly control all agriculture through a corrupted government bureaucracy whose policies are determined almost entirely by Monsanto while being rubber-stamped by the USDA. USDA is a corrupt corporation over here. This is corrupt. Ban wood stoves, rainwater, ban wood stoves, rainwater collection, and home gardening in order to criminalize self-reliance and force total dependence on government. What? Goal number 16. Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective accountability and inclusive institutions at all levels. Translation. Grant legal immunity to illegal aliens and protected minority groups which will be free to engage in any illegal activity, including openly calling for the mass murder of police officers, who they are the new protected class in society. Inclusive institutions means granting favorable tax structures and government grants to corporations that hire LGBT workers or whatever groups are currently in favor with the central planners in government. Use the IRS and other federal agencies to selectively punish unfavorable groups with punitive audits and regulatory harassment, all while ignoring the criminal activities of favored corporations that are friends of the political elite. Goal number 17. Strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Translation. Enact global trade mandates that override national laws while granting unrestricted imperialism powers to companies like Monsanto, Dow Chemicals, R.J. Reynolds, Coca-Cola, and Merck. Pass global trade pacts that bypass nations' lawmakers and override intellectual property laws to make sure the world's most powerful corporations maintain total monopolies over drugs, seeds, chemicals, and technology. Nullify national laws and demand total global obedience to trade agreements authored by powerful corporations and rubber-stamped by the UN. UN is something else. It's not what we've been taught. So, total enslavement of the planet by 2030. So that means there's 10 more years. That's the plan. So, as the UN document says, we commit ourselves to working tirelessly for the full implementation of this agenda by 2030. If you read the full document, you can read beyond the flowery and public relations phrases, you'll realize that this UN agenda is going to be forced upon all the citizens of the world through the invocation of government coercion. Nowhere does this document say that the rights of the individual will be protected. You saw that. It's all about corporations taking over. Nor does it even acknowledge the existence of human rights. They don't acknowledge the existence of human rights. We are nothing. We are cattle. You're chattel. Granted to individuals by the Creator. Even the so-called Universal Declaration of Human Rights is not here. It utterly denies individuals the right to self-defense, the right to medical choices, and the right to parental control over their own children. There's some even talking about it now in the government, saying that no parent should even be allowed to homeschool their children, and that they want all the children back to their schools. More control. More control. The UN is planning nothing less than a global government tyranny that enslaves all of humanity. We'll go ahead and just finish it again. The UN is planning nothing less than the global government tyranny. That is the United Nations over here, telling all over the world that they are helping out, making lives of poor nations and people and countries better. But they are not. They are actually putting themselves in there so they can bring everybody down. This is global government that enslaves all of humanity while calling the scheme sustainable development. So while they enslave us and they enslave the whole world, they call that sustainable development to them and equality. That's their language. 1984, George Orwell has finally arrived. And of course, it's all being rolled out under the fraudulent label of progress. Wake up, people. This is true. You've been watching how things are changing. I've been changing for the last 20 years. You would know this is true. This document here is true. For those who don't want to believe it, it's up to you. It's up to you, man. So, I hope you go ahead and read it, understand it, and wake up. Wake up. It goes right here. They're playing a game over here on humanity. And humanity is asleep. Thank you for listening. Please share and subscribe.